Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card has a cute little sheep on it and I used some Amplify to puff up his body. The set is called Seamus Sheep by Jane's Doodles. It's so adorable, I couldn't resist it. It has a lot of really cute sentiments in it, but I also purchased this set by Paper Smooches called Courteous Cuties because it has a lot of the sentiments with EWE for you that you could use with this set. And it also has a lot of bear sentiments and bee sentiments. So if you have bears or bees, that's also going to be great for that. This is the Taylor Expressions Frame in Frame die set, and I have it on my Stamp and Storage magnetic card, which is how I store my dies. It's just a really nice, unique frame set. I'm going to start this card by stamping my sheep on a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. This is just A2 size, and I'm going to stamp it in the middle with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I'm going to color his face with some Copic markers. I have W7, W5, and W3, just 3 warm gray colors. I'm going to start with the darkest on the edges of all the different parts. So I'm coloring his face, his ears, and then all 4 of his paws. And then I'm moving in with the W5, just a lighter gray, and then I'm going to take my W3 and finish everything off. Since the sheep is mostly gray and white, I wanted to add a little bit of color, so I'm going to make a little bit of an aura around him. So I'm taking a very, very light blue, it's B000, and I'm just going to color along the edge, and then I'm going to take my Zero Colorless blender, and I'm just going to blend the edge of the blue, and I'm going to move my pen toward the outline of the sheep. So I'm kind of pushing that blue toward the edge of the sheep. This is just going to add a little bit of highlight around him to make him pop off the card a little bit more. Next, I'm going to center him inside this frame so that he's right in the middle. Run it through my Big Shot. And now I'm going to keep the frame and the inside, obviously, because that's where the sheep is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to color the frame with a Copic marker. I love coloring solid with a Copic marker because it's such a smooth color. You don't have to worry about dark areas and light areas. Everything comes out evenly. So I've got, it's hard to see, but it's a BG02. It's just kind of a bright blue color. And I use my chisel tip to color the whole thing. And now I'm going to amplify my sheep. This is called Radiant Neon Amplify by Sukaneko. And it comes out of the tube very easily. You barely have to squeeze it. And so it's got a pretty big tip, so you can't do really fine applications. But I didn't have any problem doing the tuft at the top of his head. So that it does work with small areas. So I'm going to cover this whole thing. You can see it's not very even. It's a little bumpy, but that's okay because when you heat it, it's going to get all puffy anyway. So it really doesn't have to be a nice smooth application. And it helps to just sort of tap it in instead of spread it. So at least that's what I found. So now I'm going to heat this up with my heat tool. Now I got it nice and hot before I put it to my paper because it does take a little bit of time to puff up. But you can see I'm fast forwarding now in fast motion so that it pops up quickly. But the longer you put heat on it, the bigger the puffs are going to get. So as soon as it gets to the kind of size you want, you can stop. And it will stop at some point. It's not going to bubble to a huge size. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to stamp my sun in the corner. I just wanted something a little extra to fill that space. And I'm going to color this with Copic markers just really quickly with a Y15 and a Y11. And then I'm going to take one of the sentiments from the set and I'm going to stamp it with some Versamark ink on Stampin' Up! Black cardstock. And then I'm going to sprinkle some white embossing powder and heat it to set it. And then I trimmed it out and I'm going to put some ATG tape runner on the back and I'm going to have my sheep laying on top of my sentiment. He definitely needs to be laying on something. All right, now for my background, I took the negative of the die cut because I wanted it to be consistent with the frame that I just die cut. So I wanted something interesting along the edges that matched my frame. So what I did was I took the negative and I used it as a stencil. And I just put it up against my card base. This is a folded piece of Neenah cardstock, and this is a Stampin' Up! Black marker. And at first I did the loops, like all the scallops. And then I kind of did the corners, like the points of these scallops, going from the negative onto my card base to make sure that I didn't get my pen underneath my paper because I am just holding it with my fingers. You could, put some spray adhesive on it and really make sure that you don't get any excess like outside the lines. but it wasn't too much of a concern for me. So now I'm going back in and I'm coloring the rest. Now the negative isn't long enough to cover the whole card base, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover part of the ones that I've already done, and that'll help me line it up for the rest of the card. And then I'll take my pen and do the same exact thing, going along all the scallops, and then on all the points to make sure I get a nice, good outline of those points for when I color it in, and then I color it in. So notice that I'm using the large, kind of the thick tip of my Stampin' Up! Marker, so it writes with a very, very broad tip, and that allows me to color it in really quickly. You could use a finer tip, but it's going to take you longer to fill it in, and you really don't need to. You can use something that's pretty thick. All right, now for my corners, I really didn't care that much about the corners. They met in all different loops, and it wasn't a big deal. So I just covered it up and did the same exact thing that I did on the side, and then covered the points, and then took that off and colored it in. So I did this until I got all the way around my card. And you just have to make sure that your points are the same distance from your card edge every time you place that negative down. And here is the finished product. I really like the way this came out because it matches the frame that I die cut. So I'm going to put some 2A glue pen on the back of my blue frame, and I'm going to center it there on my card base. And then for the sheet panel, I'm going to put some Scotch foam tape. I could inlay it, but it is a tiny bit warped from the Amplify, so I didn't want to have to deal with any gaps between the inside and the frame. So I just popped it up on some Scotch foam tape. And then I'm going to take the heart that comes with this set because it is the perfect size. Now you could punch out a heart that you have if you want, but because this is sort of made to be on the sheep, I wanted it to be this exact size, and I stamped it with some Stampin' Up! Real Red. And then I just cut it out with a scissor. I adhered it to the sheep with some Ranger Multi-Medium Matte, and I used quite a bit of it because the sheep is textured, so you're going to need a lot of glue. And the Multi-Medium Matte dries matte, which means you won't see it. It's not glossy if it does seep out the sides a little bit. And that is the card for today. So I hope you enjoyed that. This sheep is really super cute, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.